yeah, 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 yeah. I've had my share of addictions and battles to overcome, and everything happens for a reason, but I'm stronger now that I won. This is Speakeasy Philosophy. It's a journey to recovery for you and me, with Silent E.
I am your host, Silent E, and today we have a special guest all the way from Minnesota, Eric C.
What made you start your podcast?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. When I started this up, it had to be one of the most frightening things I ever done before in my life because I didn't know where to start. I didn't have the equipment. I definitely didn't have the studio, and I just didn't know what I was doing. I was like a dog chasing his tail, per se. So I started looking up YouTube videos, how to start a podcast, how to build a studio. And it just started from the ground up. I got one microphone, and then I got two microphones. And then in the process of me buying all my equipment, I had to come up with a name. I had to come up with a slogan. I had to create an LLC. It was so much to go into it. I believe it was 6 to 8 months before I really started taking it seriously. And then, and even in that process, it was so many processes inside of a process. It was so many moving parts because I had to think of what it would be about. What would my podcast be about? I spent most of my life, and we're going to talk about that if you want to later on. I spent over 30 plus years as an alcoholic. So during the pandemic, everything shut down and it was no longer AA meetings for people to go to. So I was like, how can I give back? How can I help the people? So I said, well, I create a sobriety podcast, and I just tell my stories and encourage people not to be like me, not to be a lush, encourage people to stay sober, encourage people that they can do better. I hope that answered the question.
Do you think that your message is effective?
Wow, you got some really good questions. I like to believe deep down inside that I have a message for everybody, but I know I'm not going to reach everybody, and I know everybody is not going to be drawn to me. So what I do the best job I can. Let's be honest. I've started this podcast because a lot of people wasn't doing podcasts about sober living, or a lot of people weren't coming from the Christian aspect. A lot of people weren't coming from the spiritual aspect of sobriety. What I mean by that is putting Christ first. Yes, everybody knows that the AA was founded on spiritual traditions, but nobody was doing it to the point that I'm doing it. And I want to be the front runner so people behind me will feel comfortable enough to come and do the same thing or take it to the next level, to be able to talk about Christianity concerning sobriety.
Yes, but do you really believe people want to hear that message?
Yes, deep down in the core of my heart, I believe that it's so many Christians in this world dealing with addictions. I don't care if it's alcoholism. I don't care if it's popping pills. I don't care if it's marijuana, drugs, pornography, sniffing paint. I don't care what it is. You have so many people that's struggling, and they need to know they're not the only one. They need to know that it's somebody out in this world, is somebody in this world is suffering the same way they are, or someone in this world sitting in the same boat. And my job isn't to sit there and find out what boat they sitting in or what stoop they sitting on. My job is to sit beside them, put my arms around them, and let them know that everything will be all right. I know we all struggling in some form of a fashion. If we not struggling, somebody in our household are. Addiction is affecting everybody. Nobody escapes.
Where do you see your podcast going?
Wow, you asking a lot of great questions today. To be honest, I see my podcast going to the moon and back. But nah, seriously, if I help just 5 or 6 people in this world, I think my job is accomplished. I'm not trying to help everybody. I'm just trying to help the ones that resonate with me, the ones that speak the same language, or the ones that understand where I'm coming from. I'm just trying to help whoever I can, when I can, anytime I can.
Okay, it sounds like you have an accent. Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from Tampa, Florida. I've been living in Denver now for over 16 years.
So what made you move to Denver?
I have friends here that ride motorcycles, and they always talked about riding through the mountains. I'm a motorcycle rider. I have a lot of friends here that ride as well, and they always talked about riding through the mountains. So I came out here, and I fell in love with it. And we've been riding through the mountains and doing the national parks, and I never went back home.
Besides the mountains, what other trips have you taken?
We have biked to every major national park in America.
Is there one part that stands out in particular?
Yes, my favorite park by far would be Yellowstone, and it's not just the park, it's the idea of this riding through Wyoming is incredible. I believe, if I'm wrong, please forgive me, Wild Wind Canyon, the Wild Indian Canyon. I just love riding through Wyoming because it's just so serene. It's therapeutic. I mean, the speed limit is 80 miles an hour, so they don't care if you blow it out at 110 miles. A lot of people don't realize that it's only 500,000 people in the whole state of Wyoming, so it's actually more wildlife in Wyoming than people. It's not out of the ordinary to see herds, 200-300 head of bison, 200 or 300 heads of elk in Wyoming. It's just surreal.
For podcasting, what was your career?
The last 5 years, I was a high school teacher. But if we're really talking about careers, I spent over 20 years as a boilermaker mechanic at the shipyard, power plants, all across America.
Wow, you have lived an interesting life.
I don't think my life is that much interesting than anyone else's. I just have a hunger and zest for life that I'm willing to live, travel, see things, and do things, and just explore America.
What is the best compliment you ever received?
I forget what year it was, but I was fresh out of college, and we was invited to Atlanta. Nabisco was adding a whole new division. They added 6 silos to their new division, and each silo holds 60,000 pounds of sugar. So they invited us up to do all the mechanical work. Needless to say, we were there 6 to 8 months. Every weekend or every other weekend, I'd drive over to Bulkhead, Dante's on the Hatch. It was a fondue restaurant. On the outside, it was a regular building, but once you went on the inside, it was as though you was inside a pirate ship, and you walking across the plank to get to your tables, and beneath you was live alligators and everything, and it was just an experience, and I loved it. So about the 3rd or 5th time, maybe the 6th time, this particular night, I was leaving, and Dante himself met me in the parking lot. He came out to me and shook my hand, and he said, I noticed you being here a lot. And I said, yeah. He said, you see on my wall, I have pictures of a lot of famous stars. And I said, yes, sir. I really enjoy the ambiance and everything of your restaurant. He said, well, I'm curious about you because I like to know, are you famous or parents famous? And I looked at him and said, no, sir, I'm just a nobody. And he smiled and he said, no, everybody is somebody. And I never forgot that.
I have a 2-part question for you. What motivates you to work so hard on your podcast? Second question, what makes you work so hard in the studio?
As far as the podcast, I really can't call it hard work because it's a labor of love. Long as you doing something that you love, long as you working out of your passion, you can never call it work. I get up every day with one thing on my mind, and that's help people. As you already know, I was an alcoholic for over 30 plus years. So it's easy for me to get up and encourage somebody, like I said, not to be a lush. It's easy for me to get up and encourage somebody to do better or to become better. I don't mind sharing my experiences or telling my stories if that helps you grow, if that makes you become a better person, a better husband, a better father, a better brother, sister. Whatever it is, I want you to be the best you can be. The second question lays heavy on my heart because after my son was diagnosed with autism, I felt helpless. I really didn't know what to do. I didn't know which way to turn. I didn't know how to seek help. I didn't even know how to ask for help. So I fell into a depression, and for a while, nobody really knew it because I didn't talk about it. But it was always on my mind. So one day I'm in the studio and I'm doing the podcast and I'm breathing into other people's lives. And then I looked around and I said, well, what is it that I can do in this studio that makes a difference? It was actually an empty room, empty office. So the Spirit showed me, say, well, turn it into a studio. Turn it into something, a money-making idea, a company for your kids. Because as you well know, I have more days behind me than I do in front of me. Turn it into a legacy for your kids and something that it'll change their lives because they love to come here and take pictures. They love to paint. They love to hear their voice. They just love to have fun, as most kids do. And as far as the artistic, maybe I need to start a podcast about fathers with autistic kids just to support them because there's so many of us. And I think out of shame and guilt and hurt, we don't know how to reach out. Maybe that's a podcast for another time. Thank you for the compliment about my studio. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to give me an interview. It was very insightful and informational. Above all, I really enjoyed it. And I have to say, the person I have met today doesn't sound like the same individual I hear on the podcast.
On the contrary, I should be thanking you. No. It's you that took your time out to come and interview me to see a different side of me than you ordinarily hear on my podcast. So I appreciate you for introducing me to the whole world. Thank you, Mr. E, Big E. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening. We are so glad you've connected with us today. We are not only here to encourage you, but to offer you resources and solutions. See our website, speakeasyphilosophy.com, for a coaching program designed to assist the alcoholic in their road to recovery. We would love to help. You can also find us on social media by searching the Speakeasy Philosophy Podcast. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, with love, speak easy to yourself.